It's Monday. I'm happy to have you here. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving with your family, your friends, or anyone, or no one at all. Either way, I hope you're doing okay. Thanks for pressing play on the show today here on a Monday. The last day of November was yesterday. That's right. It's December 1st. I thought it was November 30th. I was going to remind you to make sure that you're a paid subscriber so that I can get paid and continue to pay the bills and do the show here. But it is the first of the month. A great time to sign up or edit your pledge upward. Patreon.com/Pete Dominick. This show is ad-free, but I do have to plug the hell out of the way to fund it and me. Today, I've got the great Bill Boyle joining me. We had a great discussion live yesterday afternoon. I think you're going to like it. We recapped all kinds of very important issues, including the horrific shooting of those two National Guard members in his town of Washington, D.C., and the consequences, repercussions of it coming from the regime. That and a lot more. It starts at 27 minutes. But now it's time for your headlines. Let's see what I've gathered for you from the weekend news. And I want to start with this crazy story, because when we're talking about assassinating potentially drug smugglers, the lowest level drug smugglers, might be fishermen, might just be boat owners, because you're trying to prevent drugs from coming in the country on one hand. On the other hand, this is crazy. This is a crazy story, but General Fatton, our fearless leader, has decided for some reason to give a pardon to the ex-president who said that he wanted to flooded America with cocaine. Juan Orlando Hernandez, the ex-president of Honduras, who old groper Cleveland called a victim of persecution, helped orchestrate a decades-long trafficking experience. He ravaged his Central American country. This guy once boasted that he would stuff drugs up gringos' noses. He accepted a $1 million bribe from El Chapo to allow cocaine shipments to pass through Honduras. A man was killed in prison just to protect him at his own federal trial here in the U.S. Juan Orlando Hernandez, New York. His testimony and evidence showed how the former president of Honduras maintained as a bastion of the global drug trade. He orchestrated a vast trafficking conspiracy that prosecutors said raked in millions for cartels while keeping Honduras one of Central America's poorest, most violent, most corrupt countries. Last year, the guy was convicted on drug trafficking and weapons charges and sentenced to 45 years in prison. It was one of the most sweeping drug trafficking cases to come before a U.S. court since the trial of Panamanian strongman General Manuel Noriega 3 decades before. And now his A-holiness is going to give him a pardon. But this is crazy. Everybody should be outraged by it. And not including, of course, all of the prosecutors and FBI agents and everybody else who brought this guy to justice. Just a crazy, crazy story. I wanted to mention that. It's going undercovered, in my opinion. Senators from both sides of the political aisle now joining forces to investigate allegations that our defense secretary and DUI hire Pete Hegseth ordered there to be no survivors in U.S. airstrikes on alleged drug gunning boats. That's right. Republican Senator Roger Wicker, who's the chairman of the Senate Armed Forces Committee, and Democratic Senator Jack Reed announced the decision in a joint statement over the weekend. Quote, the committee is aware of recent news reports and the Department of Defense's initial response regarding alleged follow-on strikes on suspected narcotics vessels in the Southcom area of responsibility. The committee has directed inquiries to the department and will be conducting vigorous oversight to determine the facts related to these circumstances. There's got to be some kind of justice coming. Will there be? Who knows? We will see how strong they could be. But a bipartisan group looking into Pete Hegseth, me likes it. He's on the outs, I think, anyway. We'll see. Congressman Troy Nehls, who is one of the farthest, most Trumpiest, extremist assholes in the Republican House of Texas, announced over the weekend he's retiring. Another one. And he's not going to seek re-election, joining multiple other Republicans ditching the House of Representatives. He said in a statement posted to social media he made the decision over Thanksgiving. And not long after, he said he was not running for a re-election. His twin brother, who I bet is just as much of a piece of shit, Trevor Nehls, Troy and Trevor, the twins, identical twins, he declared he's going to run for the congressional seat. So same face. Does he get the same lack of moral fortitude at all? We'll see. I'm sure he does. Come on. Reuters reported that over the weekend, over the Black Friday shopping weekend, AI-powered shopping tools helped drive a surge in U.S. online spending. That's right. We broke another record. That's right. The boycott, probably, I don't know how much of an effect it had, but shoppers bypassed the credit stores and turned to chatbots to compare prices and secure discounts amid concerns about tariff-driven price hikes. U.S. shoppers spent a record $11.8 billion online, up 9.1% from 2024 in the year's biggest shopping day, according to Adobe Analytics, which tracks 1 trillion visits that shoppers make to online retail websites. So nobody's slowing down on the shopping. That's one economic indicator that you could probably rely upon. Russia launched overnight deadly airstrikes in the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, killing at least one person, injuring 19 others, as damaging residential buildings, according to the president. Emergency response efforts currently underway following a Russian attack, he said, Vladimir Zelensky. Russia struck the city with drones, damaging numerous residential buildings as they're negotiating the future without Ukraine as we speak, I believe. And the death toll following a massive fire that ripped through several Hong Kong high-rises has climbed to 146 people, Hong Kong police said on Sunday. You see these images? Absolutely horrific. Speaking at a news conference, police said they're not ruling out the possibility that the number of dead, the fire would increase, and they've already made arrests due to some kind of corruption from not following codes or something like that. So just a horrific fire there. And they're not allowed to assemble to protest it because China won't allow for mass assemblies in Hong Kong. So that's pretty terrible. And finally, I saw this. I thought it was worth mentioning. Alcohol use in the U.S. down 54%, lowest since they started recording it in the 40s. Why is this happening? What's your guess? I don't know. Also, 45-car giant pileup in the Midwest, Interstate 70 on Indiana on Saturday. The huge accident about 10 miles outside Terre Haute. Pictures from the pileup showing dozens of cars, trucks, and semi-trucks strewn across the snow-filled road with a handful of drivers getting out of their vehicles to assess the scene. They're saying that the wreck, we're not sure, but they're saying the wreck was caused by slide-offs due to snow and ice. They got some real crack experts doing the investigations on why the pileup was caused. Snow and ice in Indiana. Wow. Well, I don't see any deaths, though, so that's good at least. But that would be really fuck up your trip home from Thanksgiving. All right, those are the headlines that I've got for you today. Now on to the clip show part of the shit show. Starting with Senator Mark Kelly. We talk about this a lot. Everybody's hearing a lot about this situation. Bill and I talk about it, but I thought I would give you the most contextual clip from his appearance on CNN's State of the Union. He was also on, I think, one of the other Sunday shows as well. But I think this exchange was real good, and I liked it a lot. Here is Senator Mark Kelly with Dana Bash yesterday on CNN. Starts with her asking about the reporting, I think the Washington Post reporting, that Pete Hegseth called for a kill strike when there were survivors after the first strike. Didn't kill everybody, apparently.
I believe if there was a second strike to eliminate any survivors, that constitutes a war crime?
It seems to. If that is true, if what has been reported is accurate, I've got serious concerns about anybody in that chain of command stepping over a line that they should never step over. We are not Russia. We're not Iraq. We hold ourselves to a very high standard of professionalism, and this is where I'm really troubled about this, is because I have so much respect for people in the United States Navy. I served in the Navy for 25 years, and there is no organization more professional than Navy SEALs, and they should be revered. And that's why I say I hope what I've heard about this strike is not accurate.
You mentioned that you are a captain in the Navy. If you received that order, would you have carried it out?
No, and I'm a guy who I have sunk 2 ships. I've sunk an OSA-2 missile patrol boat in Kuwait Harbor, a Palnakni troop carrier in the Persian Gulf during the first Gulf War. I never, in that situation, questioned whether those strikes were legal. We were given an order to do this. It was a time of war. These were Iraqi ships with Iraqi crew members who posed a threat to the United States military, in this case, who they invaded Kuwait. We're trying to kick them out of Kuwait. This was approved by Congress. All of that, right? So, but if I was ever given an order for a second, I've had questions about the operation in general, and I've been saying this for weeks, putting service members kind of like, are you stepping over a line here? Is this legal? They have tied themselves in knots trying to explain to us on the Armed Service Committee how this is legal. Not sharing, all of the information either, which is really troubling. But going after survivors in the water, that is clearly not lawful.
You mentioned that Pete Hegseth should be held responsible. You mentioned that you would not answer the call if you were ordered to do this. That was the gist of the video that you and 5 other members of Congress, who all served in various capacities in the military, put out there. You said, our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders. That video, I don't need to tell you, sparked a lot of outrage from the administration. Yes, they launched an FBI investigation. Has the FBI knocked on your door yet? Have they asked?
Well, first, let me start by saying we said something very simple and non-controversial, and the President of the United States said, hang them, execute them, prosecute them. In my case, Secretary Hegseth said, prosecute him under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for, by the way, reciting the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's obviously ridiculous. But this is an attempt to silence me, to get me to not hold this administration accountable. We have a president who doesn't understand the Constitution, who installed an unqualified Secretary of Defense. I cannot think of a Secretary of Defense in the history of our country that is less qualified than Pete Hegseth. He should not be in this position. He should have been fired after Signalgate, and now he should be fired again for this, if this is accurate. So he's not going to get me to back down. But what he is doing is sending a very chilling message across our entire nation, not only in the military, but the civilian workforce. Who's going to speak up and say anything if they see something that's unlawful or see something waste, fraud, and abuse? Why would anyone speak out if they can go and try to prosecute a U.S. senator?
Is it happening?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was notified. I was notified about this through a tweet, the same tweet that you saw. And that demonstrates how unserious this administration is. They care more about the publicity about this than the process or the law. I haven't been notified by the Navy.
By the Navy or the FBI. So no court-martial.
We got something from the FBI, but the thing we received from the FBI, just like the president saying that we should be hanged, the thing we received from the FBI is more intimidation.
What did it say?
Well, it just said there was no point of contact. It had something about coming in for an interview. And the question here should be, why did the FBI decide to do this? Or do you think maybe the president told the FBI director to go after these 6 members of Congress? So more bullying and intimidation. But, Dana, I'm not backing down. These guys don't scare me. They're not serious people. I mean the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense. Neither of them.
Wow. There you go. I like it. I like that a lot. More of that. He's not afraid. Good. We'll see what happens. Bill Boyle thinks he's going to take it all the way to the hilt. Hegseth and the rest with Mark Kelly. I don't know. I don't think so, but we'll watch and see. I wouldn't want to mess with that guy. All right, let's move on to another clip with the same subject on the same issue. This is Republican Don Bacon. He's already announced that he's retiring, so he can speak out and, I guess, vote his conscience. He doesn't like these strikes that we're talking about here in the Caribbean, and here he is on ABC's This Week with John Carl.
The Venezuelan alleged drug boat that was struck one time, but then a second time as 2 survivors were clinging to the wreckage of the boat. Your committee, you're on the Armed Services Committee, is going to be investigating this, according to your chairman. How concerned are you that this may have been a real violation of the way, even if it's a question of whether or not we're at war, but that this would violate the laws of warfare?
Well, it is a big concern. Now, Secretary of Defense Hegseth denies it. We should get to the truth. I don't think he would be foolish enough to make this decision to say, kill everybody, kill the survivors, because that's a clear violation of the law of war. So I'm very suspicious that he would have done something like that, because it would go against common sense. So let's get the facts. And if the facts go to where the Washington Post article takes it, well, then we'll have to go from there. But if it was as if the article said, that is a violation of the law of war. When people want to surrender, you don't kill them, and they have to pose an imminent threat. It's hard to believe that two people on a raft trying to survive would pose an imminent threat. So let's get the facts first. The Secretary of Health deserves his day to present his side of the story.
All right. Yeah. Can't wait to see him testifying in front of Congress on this. That is going to be very, very important, and I'm sure it's going to happen. So we'll see. And one of the people questioning him will be Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. Here's what he had to say to John Karl on ABC.
Let me ask you about that Washington Post report on the attack on that Venezuelan alleged drug boat. What do you make of what happened there? Do you think there was a war crime committed?
Oh, I think it's very possible there was a war crime committed. Of course, for it to be a war crime, you have to accept the Trump administration's whole construct here.
That we're at war.
Which is we're in armed conflict at war with the drug gangs. Of course, they've never presented the public with the information they've got here. But it could be worse than that, right? If that theory is wrong, then it's plain murder.
The first strike is murder in that case.
That's correct.
You're alleging.
That's correct. Well, I'm saying that it's either murder from the first strike if their whole theory is wrong, and I think, the weight of the legal opinion here is that they've concocted this ridiculous legal theory. But even if you accept their legal theory, that it is a war crime. And so I do believe that the Secretary of Defense should be held accountable for giving those kind of orders.
All right. Well, of course, there you go. There's Senator Van Hollen. There was also obviously a lot of talk about who, if anyone, was responsible for this Afghan national who just point blank shot two unsuspecting National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. Obviously, everyone is talking about it. The Trump administration wants to blame the Biden administration. The Biden administration is saying he was vetted and he was granted asylum by the Trump administration, which seems to be the case. It's somewhat complex and convoluted, but here it is. First, it's Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia.
These two Guards members, Ms. Beckstrom and Mr. Wolf, what a tragedy for them and their families. And you know what? They should have been at home at Thanksgiving, celebrating Thanksgiving with their families, not deployed in a political deployment to do law enforcement in D.C. that the D.C. police and other local law enforcement agencies can do. And this demonstrates yet again something we've seen so often. Our troops, including our Guards members, they're going to serve in brave and courageous and self-sacrificing ways. And we can be so proud of them. But the orders that they get from their civilian leaders, that's where the problem comes in. Whether it's a Hegseth order to kill them all or an order to send Guardsmen and women in a political stunt deployment to cities around the country, these two individuals should have been celebrating Thanksgiving with their families. And I just mourn for them and all who suffer as a result. The president's decision to say, okay, this particular criminal who should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, who came in under an asylum grant that President Trump and his administration decided this past summer, that now we're going to pause processes or asylum from 19, quote, third world countries. You don't know which ones they are. You shouldn't paint with a broad brush. Go after a criminal to the full extent of the law, but don't say that all Afghans in the United States, those who served with our military and who lost their lives and their health and their families in many ways by doing so, don't say that they're all bad. Don't say that people who come from third world countries are bad. Virginia, about 1 out of 9 of us is an immigrant, and our immigrant communities in Virginia have been an enormous source of strength to our Commonwealth and to our country, and it's wrong to target them all for the bad actions of an individual, just like we wouldn't target other communities in the United States for the bad actions of one individual.
Oh, don't let that stop them, though. Oh, they're going to do just that. Here's Kristi Noem being confronted, and she just straight out lies.
I want to be very clear about this because his asylum was approved in April of this year on the Trump administration's watch. So just to be very clear, was there a vetting process in place to approve that asylum request?
Yeah, the vetting process all happened under Joe Biden's administration.
But was he vetted when he was granted asylum?
So
are you saying he wasn't vetted when he was granted asylum?
Vetting is happening when they come into the country, and that was completely abandoned under Joe Biden's administration. That's the irresponsibility that has completely devastated our country, Kristen, put us in such a dangerous position. I don't think people realized when Joe Biden was in the White House exactly how he was allowing our country to be infiltrated with people that we didn't know who they were. Some of them we did know were dangerous, and we went after as soon as they came into this country. But under this program, we could have up to 100,000 people that came in from Afghanistan that may be here to do us harm. And President.
All right. Well, there you go. Bunch of nonsense. And then she went over to spread more nonsense on ABC News. But John Carl confronted her with a new development, and she on the record says she was the one who gave the orders to deport some of these El Salvadorans after a judge told her not to. This could get her in trouble. She's going to have to answer for this, I think, in front of committee hearings. And here it is.
Ask you before you go, as you know, a U.S. district judge has now reopened a contempt inquiry into the decision to fly those planes of Venezuelan immigrants, alleged gang members, to El Salvador after he ordered the planes to be turned around. In a DOJ filing, the Department of Justice says that you were the one that made that order. So I have two questions on that. First of all, is that right? Does the buck effectively stop with you on this? Was this your responsibility? And had you known that the judge had ordered those planes to be turned around when that order was issued?
Yes, I made that decision, and that decision was under my complete authority and following the law and the Constitution and the leadership of this president, who is dedicated to getting dangerous criminal terrorists and gangs and cartels out of our country. And I'm so grateful that we get the opportunity every day to do that and to make decisions that will keep America safe.
Did you know about the judge's order when you issued your order for the planes to continue?
This is an activist judge, and I understand, we're still in litigation with this against this activist judge who's continuously tried to stop us from protecting the American people. We continue to win. His ridiculous claims are not in good standing with the law or the Constitution. We'll win this one as well, and we comply with all federal orders that are lawful and binding, and we will continue to do that. But I'm proud of the decisions that I've made, proud to work for this president each and every day to keep America safe.
All right. Well, you're doing a great job, a bang-up job, Kristi Noem. Really great. Also, we heard from the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, who was called a retard. That's right. The president of the United States called him that word. Sorry to say it. And it's pretty fucked up. Tim Walz has a special needs son. And an Indiana senator who heard about this decided not to vote for his redistricting because of it. And that's good, too. And anyway, I thought this was pretty great from Tim Walz questioning the president's senility on NBC.
Well, Governor, let me have you weigh in on this, because part of your initial response to President Trump's post was to call for him to release the results of his MRI. And I want to give you a chance to give our viewers exactly a sense of what you mean. What exactly were you suggesting by that, Governor?
Well, here we got a guy on Thanksgiving where we spent time with our families. We ate, we played Yahtzee, we cheered for football or whatever. This guy is apparently in a room ranting about everything else. This is not normal behavior. It is not healthy. And presidents throughout time have released a couple things. They've released their tax returns, not Donald Trump, and they've released their medical records, not Donald Trump. And look, the MRI is one thing, but I think what's most concerning about this is, as your viewers out there are listening, has anyone in the history of the world ever have an MRI assigned to them and have no idea what it was for, as he says? So, look, it's clear the president's fading physically. I think the mental capacity, again, ranting, crazily at midnight on Thanksgiving about everything else. There's reasons for us to be concerned. This is a guy that randomly says the airspace over Venezuela is closed. He's ruminating on if you could win a nuclear war. Look, this is a serious position. It's the most powerful position in the world. And we have someone at midnight throwing around slurs that demonize our children. And at the same time, he's not solving any of the problems. So I'm deeply concerned that he is incapable of doing the job.
Good stuff from the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. Well done, sir. Now, let's go back to the Afghan national who allegedly killed those 2 National Guard members and talk about vetting and talk with, this is, I thought this is great context. It's Miriam McCord, who is a former Department of Justice prosecutor. She was on Velshi on MSNBC. Thought this was helpful.
Vetting, we see people all the time, U.S. born citizens, right, who are committing crimes. And I think one of the tragedies, the most tragic thing about this incident is we have one now, killed National Guard member, 20 years old, and one 24-year-old National Guard member who's in critical condition. This is a heinous crime, and the suspect, if he is proven to be responsible, will suffer under our criminal justice system. He will serve a penalty for that. But that is not directly attributed to something like a lack of vetting. Time and time again, studies across the U.S., studies out of data of incarcerated individuals, studies out of the state of Texas about those who are charged with crimes show that immigrants commit far fewer crimes and are far less likely to be incarcerated than U.S. born citizens. And, U.S. born citizens, we don't vet at all. You're born here, you have citizenship, you're entitled to be here, and there are people that go on to commit crimes. So a person can be vetted. They can have nothing in their background that would raise red flags about a crime like this. And still that does not insulate Americans or people anywhere in the world from criminal activity. What is so heinous about now, what is happening in terms of the policy response to this, is now the administration seemed to be trying to paint with a very broad brush, not just all Afghans who are here, but they've now stopped asylum for everyone from every country to do a careful vetting. We should have a careful vetting, but this should not be the impetus to vilify immigrants into this country and suggest that they are more likely to commit crimes than U.S. born citizens.
All right, there you go. There it is. That's the shit show today. No comedy. Sorry about that. Didn't get to it here, but usually do. And I'll get back after it tomorrow, I am sure. Thank you very much for listening to the shit show. Can't do it without your support. Hope you like it. Hope you are enjoying it, learn a lot from it. And now it's time to get to my conversation with Bill B. in DC. Bill Boyle, ladies and gentlemen. Go follow him on Blue Sky. He's just an innocent business owner. He runs parking garages, runs and owns parking garages in DC. If you're ever there, buy him a beer. Always love having him on. Real smart guy, very connected, and obviously a lot to talk about with what's happening there. So let's do it right now with Bill B. in DC. And you can watch us on YouTube or on Substack at lots to talk with you about. That's why I reached out to you, because so much shit going on, as always, that you could take a look at. Thanks to anybody who's joining us live as you come on in. Bill B. in DC, where there was a horrific, tragic shooting of 2 National Guard members. One has died of her wounds. The other guy apparently in critical condition. The guy accused of shooting the 2 National Guard members was an Afghan national who was also part of a CIA-backed paramilitary group that did night raids in Afghanistan. Obviously, we brought a whole lot of people here from Afghanistan. When we left, we were always bringing Afghans in because they were helping us in Afghanistan. If they proved their trust, their worth, their credibility, that was part of the exchange with a lot of them. And certainly thousands came and started a new life in America. This dude apparently had some real issues, and he did what we all know he did. And what's the reaction in DC like of this? Because to me, my hot take, quick reaction was, those 2 National Guardsmen shouldn't just have been standing there in their uniforms doing nothing. Anyway, they're sitting ducks. I don't like it, and I have never liked it. They're not necessary, but break it down for us.
Well, so I think that the ultimate point about all of this is that when you fight wars for a very long time overseas, you end up fighting them at home. And in this case, what's going on in D.C., the reaction is not, by the way, bring in more National Guard. It's quite the opposite. It is that they serve no purpose. It puts them in danger. Right? This is a safe city, but it makes them a political target. There is a deep sense of betrayal amongst Afghans who are in the U.S. or especially still in Afghanistan about how the Trump administration sold them out to the Taliban, locked the Biden administration into pulling out, which, by the way, I argued that we should pull out of Afghanistan, to be totally clear. But obviously the way it went was terrible. And then worse than that, the Trump administration.
I argued it in 2009. Go ahead. Then Obama surged.
Yeah, exactly. The surge was ridiculous. But the Trump administration has been making it brutally difficult for Afghans who helped the United States to get to America. Unlike what we've done in any war, Vietnam, thousands and thousands of Vietnamese were allowed to come here because that was felt like the only moral thing to do. Well, this guy got in because of his CIA connections, because of his paramilitary connections. This guy was a shooter and a door kicker for probably more than a decade in Afghanistan. You're bringing back, occasionally you're going to get somebody who is just incredibly damaged, who feels great resentment. And unfortunately, the Trump administration has put these National Guardsmen who are not occupying the city. They're standing around on corners. Right. They're doing landscaping. They're trying to wave at my kid as he goes to school in the morning. Like they're not police. They are a symbol. Okay. They are a symbol of Trump's vision for how he wants to control democratic America, meaning violently and militarily. And of course, political symbols get attacked. What they also are innocent people. The National Guards people that are here, I've spoken to them. They don't want to be here. They think it's stupid. And by the way, most of the ones I talk to are from Tennessee, South Carolina, conservative states, West Virginia. I talked to some of them. These are not liberals, the National Guard, that are here, quote unquote, guarding the city. But they understand fully, because they're experiencing it day to day, how stupid it is. And because they've been used as a political tool, they, of course, become a target for political violence.
Right.
And it's just a disgusting, cynical, awful thing that's being done to the National Guard, by the way. And also it's being done to D.C. Trump is trying to militarize this city because he hates it, because the city politically disagrees with him. And because he politically disagrees with D.C., one perfectly nice, cool person who is going to do great things with their life is dead. And another guy has extraordinarily terrible head injuries from it. This is on Donald Trump. It's his fault. And the smart thing to do, by the way, would be to pull the National Guard out of here tomorrow. Instead, you know what they're doing?
Surge. They're 500 new.
They're sending 500 more, but they also are pairing a D.C. police officer with each patrol.
Why?
To protect the National Guard people. I mean, and by the way, they need a police officer there because a police officer is trained in these situations, right, and may have been able to stop it before it happened. He may have noticed what was going on. So, it's absurd that now the police in D.C., who apparently are inadequate, according to Trump, are protecting the National Guard, who are here to apparently stop crime in the city. It's a utterly absurd, tragic.
You can never stop that type of crime, by the way. Just to be clear, that is a targeted killing.
Yes.
There's all kinds of different names for that kind of killing, but you don't stop that kind of crime. Police and law enforcement strategies and techniques are to stop crime as a policy, all different types of crime. But if you want to kill somebody in America with a gun, you can, is the sad truth. And this guy, we can take a look at as a result. Of course, the Trump regime is bringing more National Guard in, limiting, re-vetting those that are here from Afghanistan, in many cases probably sending them back to their deaths, even though they helped our beleaguered efforts there in Afghanistan, stood by Americans, kept them safe, kept them alive so they could come back to their families, served at any number of responsibilities from translators to, as you mentioned, door kickers and shooters. And now we're going to send them back. Also, the commander-in-chief tweeted or posted something about no more third world people, which means nothing because that's not a category that the State Department uses to determine people from different countries. It's just his racism. What are your thoughts of the reaction from the administration as a result of this Afghan national and the targeted assassination of those two uniformed National Guardsmen on your streets?
Well, the two ways to deal with this, there are ways you can do to mitigate the risk of this sort of thing happening. And the two ways to do that are to invest money in mental health care and to enforce reasonable gun control. Both of those things the Trump administration will never do. Instead, what they're doing is saying, according to Stephen Miller, that when someone comes to America, they import their whole culture and they can never assimilate into American society. That is such a gigantic amount of racist bullshit. It's amazing. Stephen Miller is a Belarusian, right? I mean, he's Jewish. Did he import, Hebraic law into America?
So
no, he did not. My family's Irish. What did we import? We brought some things with us, as everybody does, that adds to the stew of American culture. And the Trump administration is just, as always, picking whatever works for them to push their basically fascist and very certainly racist view of America. And that's all.
And also looking for any possible excuse to militarize America's cities for any number of reasons, including something to do to suspend or affect the midterm elections, right? That's
correct.
That's
they
the
actually
theory.
Started talking about the Insurrection Act. Now, the Insurrection Act over one random shooting by a guy with mental health problems. It just gets at how absurd they are. These are wannabe dictators looking for a reason to impose a dictatorship. And again, I don't think it works. I think in the end, democracy wins, but we shouldn't avoid what these people are clearly attempting to do. Thankfully, they're doing it in the most inept, crude, and anti-American way possible.
So I also want to talk with you about several other issues that are happening. Of course, we'll see what happens with that, how that gets adjudicated. They're going to, I don't know. It's by the way, ripe for conspiracy theories because this guy worked for the CIA. So you just see a Jason Bourne theory already born. This guy was a trained assassin.
Right.
And the government used him to distract from the Epstein files or whatever else.
Yeah, that's bullshit completely.
Okay, of course.
And the Epstein files are not front and center in the news because December 11th is when the due date is for the White House to release all of the files.
I did not realize that. I'm glad you mentioned that. Okay. I was wondering what was happening.
Yeah, December 11th is when the law passed by Congress says Trump has to do it. What we're going to see happen almost certainly is that Pam Bondi, right before they release them, is going to say, oops, we have an investigation and we can't release some of the files. She'll claim it's about Democrats. She'll claim it's about whatever. They're going to try to redact some things, certainly. And that is just going to keep the issue burning and alive all the way until the midterms. And that's okay. I mean, I had friends yelling about this. Oh, my God, they're not going to release them. Okay, fine. The longer they don't release them, the more it proves that there's obviously something in there. I have always been an Epstein file skeptic. I've always been one. Now I'm a lot less skeptical than I used to be because of the way they're behaving. Trump was never as melty down about anything, about the Russia stuff. He always had a certain kind of FU attitude about the Russia, all the evidence about his connections with Russia, which always suggested to me, or did eventually suggest to me, that there probably wasn't a lot of there. In this case, Trump is going to the mattresses completely. And that is the first time I've ever seen him do it to this extent. And I think obviously there's a terrible vulnerability for him in the files. And it doesn't really matter whether they release them or not. The longer it goes on, the more people know what happened.
I think it's a really good point. Boyle pointing to the long game and politics as opposed to having that hot take, impulsive reaction that many of us have, which is an emotional reaction. We want this now, like we want everything else. We want justice right now. But what you're saying is, yeah, me too. It'd be great. Love to see it. But if they don't want to create transparency because of what they're concerned about, let them drag it out. It will continue to be a top line issue and they can do whatever they want to distract from it, but it is not going anywhere, is what you're saying there. Talk to me about this really important issue that I think every American should be concerned about and talking about, which is the targeted killings in the Caribbean, these fishing boats, these drug boats, who knows? People have heard the kind of probably arguments for and against. It seems like overwhelmingly Americans aren't that concerned with this because, hey, you should just be able to kill bad guys. But obviously, if you think about it for 1 second and you want to live in a country where there's a rule of law, the government can't just kill people they think are bad. And if they blow up a boat and they kill a few of them and there are survivors that are helpless in the water, you can't then go, quote, finish them off. I just quoted Hegseth. I don't know what he said. I don't know if that's a direct quote. But the news is that's what happened, that they, during one of these dozens now of targeted killings, that there were survivors, and Hegseth basically from a control room somewhere said, finish them. And now it would seem that even Republicans in the House Oversight Committees, those that oversee the Department of Defense, that's their job. And obviously many in the Senate are looking at this and going, listen, there's some crimes here. There might be some crimes here. We got to look at this. We got to reel it back. What are your thoughts on it? What are you hearing from all of your well-sourced DC steakhouse? You probably hang out at steakhouses with them. Friends. I hate whatever. Irish bar friends that you talk to.
Yeah, Irish bar is way more my speed, but I haven't heard anything, that is not in the news from anybody. But I will tell you this. We indicted people during World War II, World War I for doing exactly this, Vietnam. It is Geneva Conventions 101 that you do not kill wounded on the battlefield. That is, it's called hors de combat. It's people wounded on the battlefield, right? You do not kill the wounded, ever. That is true when you're in a war. Where this is even more absurd is they don't even have a legal justification for hitting these boats in the first place. So forget about the murders of the people who were wounded, where Hegseth goes back and tells his staff to kill them. The strikes themselves are murder. They are homicides. We don't know specifically who's in most of these boats. By the way, if you're a person who gets on a boat that happens to have drugs and you don't know, maybe you're a refugee trying to get to the Bahamas and you get killed in that is murder. This has been murder from the day one. Rand Paul, to his great credit, has been calling it murder since the very first airstrike. And that's just is what it is. The fact that Hegseth is so blitheringly stupid to say, go back and hit these other people, just proves how utterly unqualified and what an absolute moron he is. Somebody called him, a military guy I know, called him a terminal captain. And what he meant by that was that
frozen in his rank, can't move.
Frozen in his rank. One of these guys who's incredibly gung-ho, who doesn't know anything about proportion and will never, ever get promoted above captain because no one above his rank trusts him. Something else most people don't realize is that the unit that Hegseth fought in the Middle East in was busted for war crimes soon after he left. He comes from that mindset.
They defended one of the worst war criminals of the quote war on terror. Hegseth and Trump defended this guy whose name is escaping me, but there were several others, but this guy was court-martialed. He was tried. He was found guilty by his fellow special forces team members.
His own unit turned him in.
There's so much reporting and investigation on it, but no, Hegseth stood by him. He also murdered a man who they had captured on the battlefield, is my recollection.
Stabbed him in the throat, actually.
Right.
That's what he did.
Stabbed him in the throat in front of everybody.
What's so, just if people think, well, these guys are just quoting being goody two-shoes about war or combat or whatever. Mm-hmm. The whole point of not doing this is that it doesn't then happen to your own soldiers when they are wounded in combat. Mm. It makes sense for everybody, however brutal the war is, to not have their own wounded be murdered on the battlefield.
Right.
That's just basic humanity. It's actually self-interested for everyone to not want this to happen. And I'll tell you what really proves why it's murder. Several people who were on boats that got hit, that were then picked up, were simply delivered back to their home countries.
Right. No,
just didn't want anything to do with them.
No trial, no charges.
Just send them home. Send them home. No penalty, no charge, nothing.
Hey, don't say anything. Don't say anything about what you saw here. All right, or we'll come back.
Think they did that. I mean, but it proves that they know they have no case. They don't. And by the way, if you want to prove that an administration is lawless, well, have it kill people without any legal sanction. That's it. Bottom line. There's no question about it. I have friends who say to me, who are, sort of conservative legal people, who say well, we haven't really hit the constitutional crisis yet. Bullshit. Of course we have. We're killing people without even a fig leaf of justification in any legal sense.
And so as a result of these killings, as well as in the previous administration, MAGA Teresa ordering to shoot protesters in the legs, as well as many other orders that are illegal, unlawful, whatever you want to call them, inhumane, horrific, stupid, short-sighted, unhelpful, you name it. So as a result of that, Senator Mark Kelly and a bunch of other Democrats make this video, which basically is like, hey, everybody, uphold the law. Not really a controversy, reminding people. Everybody knows why. Now they misquoted them and said don't follow the law. Everybody's probably been following this, but they want to bring Hegseth is talking about bringing Mark Kelly back into the military and court-martialing him because he can't do it to anybody else, apparently. How do you look at this guy, Pete Hegseth, who served in the military, but we know what kind of guy he is. He was a Fox TV guy. He never did anything in the military to be particularly proud of. In fact, he had a shameful service. It could easily be said. Meanwhile, Mark Kelly got shot down, got almost shot down, flew to space shuttle a couple times. His wife got shot. I mean, Mark Kelly, say whatever you want about his personality, his policies, his face. It's hard. He looks like me if I was ugly. And the point is, the point is, Hegseth is going after that guy. How do you see that? How do your military type friends see that? How do you phrase like just that dynamic, and where does it go? Because it's going nowhere. It's just so embarrassing to talk a big game and talk about bringing this guy in and making these threats, and then it goes nowhere. You bring Comey in, you bring Tish James in, and it just blows up in your face. They just keep failing. They make threats and they fail. Oftentimes they're paper tigers. I don't want to understate it, but it's just it's got to be so embarrassing at some point if you're Hegseth and others.
Well, Hegseth and these folks are playing to the cheap seats of their own base.
Right.
So that's really what he's doing. He thinks that this looks strong. And by the way, Hegseth is somebody who was talking about how tough the Russian military looked before the invasion of Ukraine.
That's right.
And all those buff guys in striped
does
shirts.
He hate women in powerful positions. Hegseth, from women in combat to women in leadership positions to women's female statues to memorials of women. Yep. He hates women getting any credit or being in any position to get credit. It is unbelievably.
Well, and all those buff guys in the chewing glass in the Russian videos before the war in Ukraine are now like fertilizer in eastern Ukraine today.
Good point.
I'm not kidding. Literally, most of the VDV is dead from that era. And what's going on here, it's a good microcosm for MAGA in general. A lot of MAGA are mediocre people who hate people that have excellence. And Kelly truly has excellence. I read an article that discussed all of the medals that he wears on his chest in his uniform. I suggest people go look up the medals that Kelly has. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. He has medals that he was awarded multiple times.
And Hegseth criticized him for having the medals on in the wrong order and the wrong place. Apparently, people are saying that the photograph was flipped and Hegseth was wrong. But even if it were wrong, even if they were displayed wrong, the idea that I or anybody would go after someone who served in the military and had a bunch of ribbons in any country, who served anywhere, and be like, you got that on wrong. What?
Well, exactly. Well, that again is the mediocre hating.
You have your medals on wrong is some balls.
That Medal of Honor you've got, it's laying a little low.
Your Medal of Honor's loose.
Just completely absurd. And what's going on is that they'll try to do this. I'm very sure that they're going to attempt this. And I've been telling people that is the beginning.
Attempt what? Bringing Kelly in and court-martial?
Oh, they're going to try. No, they're 100% going to try.
No way.
I'm telling you, they're going to try.
Come on.
Is it stupid? Is it fruitless? Will it make them look bad? Then they're going to try.
Even to their base doesn't think that looks bad. I mean, Mark Kelly, he didn't.
You talk to MAGA people. You know what
I don't know what they think about this. I have a hard time.
The Epstein thing will split them. This won't split them. What it will do, I will tell you, it's going to really piss off people in the military.
Sure.
It really piss off people in the military, A. B, it is the opening shot of the Kelly 2028 campaign.
Right.
If they court-martial him, God forbid for them, God forbid they're successful. Because they'll be tangling with the military.
By the way, Mark Kelly for president, I mean, listen, I firmly believe more now than ever that personality is everything, far more than policy. Personality is everything when you're running for office. And, Mark Kelly has the personality of a space shuttle commander.
That's true, but if Mark
super
Kelly
smart, really brave,
and says, "I'm here to run for the honor of the country," that
I know
these people. I'm telling you, Pete, you never know what'll happen. And I'm just telling you. I mean, Jimmy Carter was and George Bush Sr. They were like watching paint.
Yeah, I know, but those are the olden days. Now we're running only good performers. Let's go.
These balls will bounce in directions that we're not going to be able to predict. And I think that it is a gigantic mistake to do this. I'm sure that, I mean, it was incredibly stupid to indict Comey and Letitia James, and they did it, and they're getting humiliated in court.
Right.
And they're still trying to figure out how to continue to do it. You know, these are people with dictatorial instincts that have weak dictatorial tools, but they're looking at the midterms that are coming up, and they're smashing all the buttons and pulling all the levers and trying to make whatever they can happen while they think they have the most ability to affect.
That's for sure. This next, between now and the midterm elections, who knows what they're going to do, if it's going to be free and fair, but they certainly are going to try to get as much as they can done before then. Although they're losing seats by the day, they could literally potentially lose their majority. We can talk about that in a second, just with the numbers. I don't think it's likely at all. But if you keep having Republicans resign, that's going to be an issue. If this special election in Tennessee is at this Tuesday, if the Democrat wins there, which is unlikely but possible now, which is crazy, but because there's a momentum, the numbers are getting thinner and thinner in the House, that margin. And so they're trying to get as much as they can done. Also, even though they don't have the dictatorial powers, as you said, he does have immunity from the Supreme Court, that decision, which nobody had predicted would happen, which can't believe they gave him. But it is the reason why he's doing a lot and basically telling people in the Department of Justice, in the Department of Defense and the Health Department, do whatever I say or you're gone. Like everybody.
Well, also remember, though, he's lost a lot of those cases. I have friends at state who got riffed.
He's lost the cases, but he's trying to do these things and commit these crimes because he's allowed to, and he's giving potentially extending that immunity. And it's like, did he give Hegseth already a pre-pardon? Like, listen, I'll pardon you for whatever you do. Just do whatever I say. Kill anybody. Kill everybody.
Here's the thing, and this is where they are profoundly stupid. The smart move would be to keep the government in one piece and get it to do what you want to do with the staff that's there. Because when you riff all these people, you boot all these people out, you're actually damaging your own ability to govern. That's why things aren't working very well. That's why we had the flight problems.
Well, they don't care. They don't care about governing. They have no idea about governing. It's always worth pointing that out. Not,
and that's his Achilles heel.
Well, yeah. Thank God.
You and I talked about this. Somebody like Stalin, was a bureaucratic genius who created a bureaucracy that buttressed his power. Trump is firing the bureaucracy, and he's not bringing in people he has no bureaucratic vision. He has no sense of building a structure that's going to last beyond him. And so it won't. I mean, it's not. And by the way, we talked about the Epstein files a minute ago. An effect that's having already is that he's losing his ability to enforce doctrine on his own MAGA base. Marjorie Taylor Greene, terrible person, but not a dumb politician. And what Greene has figured out is that this is going south. She probably knows things that are in the Epstein file that are going to.
One would think. And she wants
out so that she can pick up the pieces when Trump flames out. That's what she's doing.
I mean, I don't even know.
Look at Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert was brought into the White House. Yeah. And they said, do not sign the discharge petition for the Epstein vote. She said no. Lauren Boebert is like
Jamie Raskin's giving her all this credit. I guess they're buddies.
Well, it's not that she should be given credit. She knows politically it's smart to break away from these people on this. And you're starting to get that happen. In Indiana, one of the Republicans—
I want to give these women credit, though, also, that some of them are just women who have been victims of sexual assault and don't want— I mean, I think at least two of them are that voted. Obviously, Nancy Mace tells everybody who wants to know that she's a victim and then uses it against people and victimizes them. It's crazy. But regardless, I want to believe that there are women who are just like, I can't.
Well, I'll give you another example.
I can't be part of this.
A state Republican senator in Indiana who's quite conservative.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Came up about Trump called Waltz a retard. And this guy said, if you're wondering why, I'm not voting to redo our districting in Indiana to the benefit of the Republican Party, it's because these people are gross and disgusting and violating the Hatch Act, and here's a good example of it.
I'm glad you mentioned that story because in case people don't know, Stupid, he posted on social media, he called Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, he called him a, quote, retard, a word that a lot of people don't use anymore. And this Republican congressman who's state senator whose vote he needs to redistrict has a Down syndrome child. And like a lot of other people, unfortunately, you got to have the personal experience to have any empathy. It's so pathetic. But regardless, he's like, fuck that. No, I don't like it. I don't like the president of the United States using that word. And therefore, you don't get what you want from me. And give him credit, fine.
Yeah, I will say, though, we have to point out the French do use that word a lot.
Well, everybody uses a lot of other words. Yeah, well, I know my daughter is dating a Frenchman. I've learned a lot.
C'est bon.
So got to just ask you then finally about the Ukraine-Russia deal. Nobody follows this stuff closer than my friend Bill Boyle, who's well placed to know what the hell is happening. It's crazy to think that people are negotiating anything between two countries, between two governments who have never done that, who have never been an intern or a young deputy or a mentored by. You think about so many people who spent their life negotiating and practicing diplomacy in some of the hardest situations. Anyway, just throw anybody in there. Anybody can do it, I guess. They make it look easy. Steve Witkoff goes and he loves Vladimir Putin. He put his hand over his heart when he saw him come in the other day when they met in person. He talked about how great a guy he is in an interview recently. Yeah. He's negotiating, and so is apparently the Secretary of the Army, Driscoll, guy named Driscoll, instead of Hegseth. Rubio is somewhere. Who cares about the Ukrainians? Ukrainians aren't invited again.
You're leaving somebody out that's quite important.
Leaving, is it Mike Pompeo, I hope? No. Jared Kushner's involved, which makes no sense. And there's shadow negotiations, different parties negotiating with the same partners, which is also unprecedented because no country would ever want that. But he hosted The Apprentice and likes to pit people against each other, or he's just an idiot and power vacuum. But the bottom line is, my understanding is after all of this is said and done, it's just another delaying tactic and Putin is just going to keep the war going. And that's it.
I wish that were the case.
Oh.
But when Jared Kushner shows up, the weaker party that can't give his family billions of dollars in deals loses. And Jared Kushner is sitting at the table in Miami as we speak, actually, with Rubio and Witkoff and various other people selling out Ukraine. There was a leak of
selling out Ukraine right now.
Yes. I think a European intelligence agency leaked a document to the press a couple days ago that lays out all of the business deals that the Russians were offering Witkoff, and through him, Trump and Trump's posse, billions of dollars of business deals offering to them. What's happened is the Russians finally figured out if you just offer these people billions of dollars, they'll do whatever the hell you want. And Trump bit hard on it, pushed by Vance. Vance has a ideological reason for doing this. Basically, Vance is a fascist follower, Quisling, and he wants to see somebody like Putin win over Ukraine, which has a, unfortunate tendency to actually vote for their leaders. And so what you're seeing is the Vance people. Driscoll is Vance's pick for the head of the army. They're the army secretary. Driscoll is also apparently quite a nice guy who plays well with others in Washington, talks to the Democrats, talks to the press, is a far smoother, less insane version of most of these guys. But he's in his position because Vance put him there. And he is Vance's person. And so they want to push out Hegseth. They want to put Driscoll into his shoes, which is why Hegseth's not there, why Driscoll is, and why Driscoll's doing the running for the vice president. We unfortunately have this confluence of Trump's greed, Jared Kushner's greed, and Vance's ideology all pushing this forward. The Europeans are absolutely white hot apoplectic and are talking about, from what I read today, taking economic measures against the United States that will shake America's hold on the world economy.
Come on.
Nope. That's what the Europeans are saying.
It's quite a statement.
Well, I think they can do it. And I think that if they finally say, okay, America really is against us, then we have to go out on our own. We've got to become a super state, and we have to fight our own corner. We can't depend on the U.S. anymore. This is exactly what the blob, you're familiar with that term, right?
The foreign policy thinkers in the Beltway. Yeah.
Right. The sort of conventional wisdom foreign policy thinkers in the Beltway. It's exactly what they were afraid of. It's exactly what all of the people who were sort of soft, the anti-Trumpers and the pro-Trumpers, they were always like, the blob is ridiculous, and they've been running American foreign policy, they've been screwing up, and none of this bad stuff's going to happen because America's too strong. Well, if Trump does this, if this goes through, Trump will have accomplished breaking America's hegemony.
Well,
because Europe really will. By the way, Europe is thinking about saying, fuck it, let's go for broke to defend Ukraine, with or without the Americans. And if that happens, then, the global order has broken. And maybe it gets reconstituted differently, maybe in some way that's effective later. But this is a betrayal of every single American soft power initiative since 1945.
So,
particularly because it's being done just purely the plan they put up is there'll be a Russian-American fund funded with frozen Russian money that effectively America will gain all the benefits, and the Ukrainian one as well, where America gets the profit. So this is a protection racket. There's not even and by the way, say that it ends up being $300 billion. That, in terms of world security and America's
$300 billion in trade,
you're basically getting pennies for giving up pounds. It's a completely stupid, idiotic, shooting yourself in the foot. It's giving up the Sudeten land supposedly to save Czechoslovakia. And it will be you're sowing the seeds of the next 5 big wars.
Wow, that's quite a statement.
And it's just true. It's just true. Does this all happen? Maybe if some genius statesman comes through and maybe Russia collapses tomorrow, maybe China all of a sudden gets scared and says, whoa, we have to try to keep the world from falling apart. I tend to be a middle to long-term optimist, but God, getting to the next stage is going to be really bloody if this.
New leadership could change everything.
It can, but if it's too late for Ukraine, then we're going to be talking about defending the Baltic states, Moldova, Romania, Poland.
I was actually not thinking about that. I was thinking about the relationship between the U.S. and Europe, much less the U.S. and Canada, who last week, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, said that the U.S.-Canadian relationship, he said, we know that this decades-long process of our ever closer economic relationship between Canada and the United States has ended. Like, he pronounced our special relationship dead. The Europeans are not providing.
They should totally do this. This idea of sort of saying nice doggy while you look for a rock. Get the rock out right away. Because the Trump people are.
What are you going to do? Wait, what's that fucking analogy? What are you going to do with the rock? You're going to hit the rock?
Well, the rock is throw the rock. Say, okay, we're done. We're done.
What does the dog have to do? What is the dog and the rock?
Well, there's a joke about diplomacy that the art of diplomacy is saying nice doggy until you find a big enough rock. Right? Dog is growling at you and you find something, you keep saying nice doggy until you find something big enough to drive it away.
You appease the dog until you can find something to hit it with? Is that analogy?
That is correct. That is exactly it.
Jesus Christ.
Well, diplomacy underneath the surface is a rough business. But the bottom line is that these countries have to kick Trump right in the balls. They have to, because it's all that he understands. It's all that he respects.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're talking about Trump like he's some third world tin pot dictator. Yes, that's exactly the right description. He's a tin pot dictator, and he thinks that way, and he has no conception at all of the other soft power levers the United States has. In fact, like USAID, like Voice of America, he's gone out of his way to destroy them.
You know, one thing that there's so much behavior that we have not seen from modern authoritarians around the world that we have seen from ours. And I think that we don't talk about it enough because it's almost hard to believe. But when we think about the current day dictators and authoritarians around the world over the last 5-10 years, who's in office, in power, who is gone? Gaddafi, Hussein, Bashar al-Assad. When we like Assad wasn't like the guy's buttoned up. The guy was calculated. The guy was intelligent. He wasn't insulting reporters and calling them idiots. Like this, he wasn't wearing makeup and dressing up like some of them do. I mean, there's so often we compare what our guy now, Placido Domingo is what I'll call him. We compare him to other current, and it's not fair to them because he's way worse. The way that he acts is insane. He's old and doddering and stupid. The way he calls reporters idiots and like that, they don't do that in other countries. They might not have access, by the way. They might not have access to their leader because it's so terrible, China, etc., North Korea. But anyway, I just wanted to close with just that point to make sure that we just always talk just about just how crazy this time and this person is in power and his day-to-day behavior so much wilder and crazier and unorthodox than anything we've really ever seen. And I mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, what Trump has that these people don't, he benefits from this incredibly powerful state that the Democrats, small d Democrats, built before him. So he can do all these things because he comes from such a stable state that has so much power and has so many complex layers of control and ability and function. And that's the ironic part, right? Somebody like him couldn't exist in a state that was a mess. He can only exist in a state that is really extremely powerful and stable. Because if Bashar al-Assad was wearing makeup and doddering around yelling at journalists, one of his generals would have put a behind his ear.
Yeah, that's seriously.
Right?
I mean, any of them. Yeah. Any of them. Or it just wouldn't fly. People wouldn't.
Xi is the head of an extremely powerful state. If he behaved like Trump, he'd be dead in a week. Or they would send him to the farm, as my parents used to say about dogs that we had that bit people.
Oh.
Right? But they would not allow it because they can't, because their states are too unstable for them.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate your time today. I think we recapped a lot. I love your perspective on everything. I don't know what else there is to say.
And one last point. More Irish, more blacks, more dogs, buddy.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to get that shirt. Ladies and gentlemen, go follow Bill right now on Blue Sky if you haven't already. And support my work at patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Thanks for joining me on a Sunday, all of you who joined us live. And we will talk to you tomorrow on the regular podcast. Thank you, Bill.
Take care, guys.
Bye,
Cheers.
everybody. All right, there you go. Bill B in D.C., Bill Boyle. There it is. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for joining me. Can't do it without you. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. And I hope that you've written a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Follow and subscribe on Substack and YouTube. And go support John Carroll, johncarroll.org right now, taking us in and out and all about. Take it away, John Carroll.
That's the time you gotta finally get up on your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change would begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be told us up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.